Welcome back to Takeout. Tuesday night, Virginia voted to approve a new congressional map that would, quite likely, give Democrats a 10-1 advantage. The next day, a state judge blocked that map from going into effect, saying the referendum violated Virginia's Constitution. And late this afternoon, Virginia's Supreme Court said it would hear arguments in this case. Xavier Becerra joins me now. He formerly served as California's Attorney General, is currently running for governor. Javier, it's great to have you on the program. I know you're not an interested party directly in this spat in the Commonwealth of Virginia, but California went through this. Republicans argue in Virginia the referendum was deceptive, and the means by which this was carried out violated process in Virginia. Do you have any anxiety that Virginia Democrats are going to lose this case and lose the advantage implied by this vote to change its congressional maps?
If the argument is process, Major, I believe that this map is going to go forward. We had something similar in California where Republicans sued. Listen, Republicans, they're getting their due because this is what happens when you play with fire. They played with fire in Texas, now California, now we see Virginia. This is a result of trying to tinker with the seats that people have. Most voters don't want to have to do this, but they understand what they're doing. They're playing politics with congressional seats. No one likes that.
There was a debate last night, and on the debate stage, one of your Democratic opponents, Katie Porter, said the following, that you have lovely plans, but never any numbers, any revenue plan, any details, anything that pushes on the status quo. The how and the why and how much are all missing. Now, you can talk about Katie Porter if you want, but there's an underlying criticism there that you've been vague so far in this campaign. How do you respond?
Major, she obviously hasn't been watching what I've done for the last more than 10 years. I've not been vague. When I was Attorney General, I took on Donald Trump toe-to-toe over and over. I ended up having to sue him over 120 times. I took him all the way to the Supreme Court. I beat him. The reason the Affordable Care Act is still here is because when we went to the Supreme Court to defend it, we beat Donald Trump. The reason the program for Dreamers, the DACA program, is still alive is because I beat Donald Trump all the way in the Supreme Court. Over and over, we took him on and we won. The reason HHS was able to get America out of the COVID pandemic is because we got some 700 million COVID shots into the arms of Americans. We were able to pull out not just the people in our healthcare, but our economy as well. We balanced the book 4 years in a row at HHS, a budget that is bigger than the budget of the state of California. And we were able to also negotiate lower drug prices. So I know Katie, who's never actually run a government agency before, let alone the largest public health enterprise in the world, with a budget bigger than the state of California. That's a good talking point for someone who's running politics but doesn't know how to run government.
Javier, right now it is an atmosphere clearly advantageous to Democrats. But one thing persistently in polls, even that show Democrats up on a generic ballot, show Republicans still have an advantage on border security. You were part of the Biden administration for 4 years. Looking back, how much do you regret things that the Biden administration got wrong on the question of border security and internal immigration enforcement?
Well, certainly, I wish we would have been more ambitious in the way we attacked the border security issue. I wish we would have been more aggressive in trying to process those who are trying to come into the country and claim asylum. We could have gotten through those cases a lot faster if we had treated the asylum process and these applications for asylum the way we treated COVID, where we surged resources to attack this. Instead of allowing the asylum process to bulge out of proportion in the number of people who were seeking their hearings, because by law, you have to provide them with a hearing, we could have addressed this much faster. I ended up having to deal with the situation with the number of kids that were unaccompanied by an adult who crossed over the border. And we had to manage a situation where we inherited from the Trump administration a dismantled system to care for these kids. And that made it really tough. A broken system. We had to stand something up. Remember, those were the days when kids were being caged. Those were the days when families were being separated. Those were the days when the Trump administration was criminalizing the very families that were willing to help care for these kids while they awaited their immigration hearings. And so that was the wreckage that we took over.
Speaking of some of those children, it has been alleged by the Trump Justice Department that under your watch, some of those children were lost track of and ultimately trafficked, and that they have tried to find and rescue them. How do you respond to that?
Well, those are the MAGA talking points that have been used over the years. But let me ask you, Donald Trump is back in office. What has he done to find these so-called kids that they claim are lost? Have you heard that the Trump machine is out there trying to find these so-called lost kids? It's just Trump talking points.
Not true then.
No, no, we did when we had kids in our care, we had them in our care. And we did not let kids work. You heard about exploitation of some of these kids. That was exploitation done by employers. The kids that were in our care at HHS did not leave our facilities. And so, what the Republicans were talking about, these MAGA talking points, are things that were outside of the jurisdiction of the Department of Health and Human Services.
Do you want the endorsement of Gavin Newsom, the current governor of California?
I'd like the endorsement of every Californian and certainly every Democrat. I'd love the endorsement of our previous governors, our current governor. I think it's important that California Democrats unite and we have a big victory come November 2026.
Do you think any Democrat should regard it as strange that as of yet you have yet to receive an endorsement from Kamala Harris or Joe Biden, whom you worked with and for?
Major, you know how this goes. When you get into the endorsement game, especially in a race like this where there's so many different candidates, when you endorse, you make one friend and everybody else becomes an enemy because you didn't endorse them. And so why does anyone, including the sitting governor of California, need to have one friend and a whole bunch more enemies?
It's been said by the state party chairman, the Democratic state party chairman, that Democrats in this race need to drop out. But any rational Democrat who's still in the race might say, wait a minute, if you'd said that to me 2 weeks ago, I wouldn't have known that Eric Swalwell was going to drop out. Do you think any Democrats are going to drop out of this race? And do you have any fear that this could be a 1-2 Republican finish?
I don't have a fear that there will be a 1-2 Republican finish. I do believe that the voters are beginning to telegraph who they're going to support. And I do believe that Democrats will unify behind whoever comes out, whether it's one Democrat or two Democrats in the coming out of the primary. I will tell you this. I come from a background, my parents came from Mexico. There used to be a term used in Mexico with regard to its elections. The millions of people every 6 years would come out to vote for president. But it almost made no difference who was running because what counted was when the president, existing president, the sitting president gave his dedazo. Dedo means finger. And as soon as that president pointed to the next successor, made no difference where people voted, that person became the next president. And so I don't believe California and America ever wants to get to the point where a dedazo determines who becomes president. We want to have competition. Robust competition is good. And I think at the end of the day, we're going to have a really strong Democrat taking over the governor's office in California.
Xavier Becerra, appreciate the time. Hope you come back.
Look forward to it.